Hello, my friend. What if everything you've been told about success is a carefully crafted lie? What if the real reason you're not where you want to be has nothing to do with talent, connections, or timing, but everything to do with a battle happening inside your skull right now, at this very moment? Here's the uncomfortable truth. While you're reading these words, your brain is actively sabotaging you. It's whispering excuses, generating distractions, telling you that you'll deal with this later when you feel ready. And here's the part that'll blow your mind. This isn't a personal weakness. This is pure biology. Your brain is literally programmed to keep you stuck, comfortable, and safe. It's been doing this since the day you were born. But what separates people who build extraordinary lives from those who stay trapped in mediocrity? It's not superhuman willpower. It's not genetic luck. It's something far simpler and far more powerful. They've learned to hijack their brain's operating system. They've cracked the code on how to make their mind crave challenge instead of Netflix, hunger for growth instead of scrolling, and seek discomfort instead of the couch. And by the time you finish this journey with me, you're going to know exactly how to do the same thing. This isn't motivational fluff. Motivation is like cheap cologne. Smells nice for 10 minutes, then completely disappears when you actually need it. What I'm about to share with you is a complete reprogramming manual for your mind. You're about to discover why your brain fights you, how resistance actually works at the neurological level, and most importantly, the exact techniques that will transform your greatest enemy into your most deadly weapon. Because here's what nobody wants to admit. Everything worth having in life, the body, the business, the relationships, the freedom, all of it exists on the other side of things that feel hard. The only question is, are you finally ready to force your brain to go there? Chapter 1. The Discipline Delusion. Why Just Push Harder is Destroying Your Life. Let me shatter an illusion that's been quietly ruining your potential for years. You've been sold this story that successful people possess some magical reserve of self-control that you simply don't have. That they wake up with iron discipline coursing through their veins while you struggle to get out of bed. That they can resist temptation, power through difficulty, and maintain focus because they're built differently than you. This is absolute garbage, and believing it is the precise reason you're stuck. Here's the reality that nobody tells you. Discipline is not some personality trait you either have or don't have. It's not a character strength that some people are blessed with. Discipline is a rapidly depleting resource that runs out faster than your phone battery on a cold day. And the people who seem unstoppable, they're not relying on discipline at all. They've built systems that eliminate the need for discipline entirely. Think about your typical day. You wake up feeling motivated, ready to conquer the world. You skip the pastry, hit the gym, resist checking Instagram. For a few hours, maybe even a few days, you feel invincible, like you've finally figured it out. But then reality hits. Your boss dumps an unexpected crisis on your desk. Your partner starts an argument. Your kid gets sick. Your car breaks down. And suddenly, that iron willpower you had this morning, gone, vanished. The cookies that were easy to resist at breakfast become impossible to ignore at midnight. The workout you committed to gets postponed. The important project gets pushed to tomorrow, and you tell yourself you'll restart on Monday. Sound familiar? This phenomenon has a name in psychology: decision fatigue. And it's been proven in laboratory after laboratory, across cultures, across professions, across every demographic you can imagine. Every single decision your brain makes, especially the difficult ones, burns through mental energy like a bonfire. By evening, you're running on fumes. And when you're depleted, your brain automatically defaults to its easiest, most automatic patterns. This is why you can eat like a saint all day and then demolish an entire pizza at 11 p.m. This is why you can be laser-focused all morning and then waste 3 hours on TikTok in the afternoon. This is why New Year's resolutions die by February and gym memberships become monthly donations you never use. The people who appear to have unlimited discipline aren't fighting this system. They're gaming it. They understand their brain has a limited fuel tank for decisions, so they eliminate decisions wherever humanly possible. They automate their behaviors. They engineer their environments. They design systems that make success inevitable without requiring them to be a superhero every single day. Consider this. Mark Zuckerberg wears the same gray t-shirt every day, not because he owns one shirt, but because he understands that choosing an outfit depletes the same mental energy he needs for running a trillion-dollar company. Tim Cook wakes up at 3:45 a.m. every morning and follows an identical routine. Not because he lacks spontaneity, but because routine eliminates decision-making friction. But here's the deeper truth that changes everything. Your brain doesn't actually want to conserve willpower for important things. It wants to avoid difficult things altogether. When you tell yourself you're too tired to work out, too stressed to eat healthy, or too busy to work on your goals, your brain isn't protecting your energy, it's protecting your comfort zone. This is where most people completely misunderstand the game. They think the solution is building more willpower, developing more self-control, somehow transforming into the type of person who never struggles. But that's like trying to win a marathon by holding your breath. Technically impressive, but absolutely unsustainable. The real solution is to stop relying on willpower at all. The real solution is creating conditions where difficult things become automatic, where your environment pulls you toward the right behaviors instead of you having to push yourself through sheer mental force. Think about brushing your teeth. You don't need discipline to do it. You don't sit there negotiating with yourself, building motivation, giving yourself a pep talk. You just do it. It's automatic. Why? Because you've repeated it so many thousands of times that it requires zero conscious effort. The secret to forcing your brain to do hard things is making hard things as automatic as brushing your teeth. And that requires understanding something most people never learn. Your brain operates on two completely different systems. System one is fast, automatic, emotional. It's the part that makes you grab your phone when you're bored, skip the gym when you're tired, order takeout instead of cooking. System one never gets tired. It's always on. It's always pulling you toward easy, familiar, comfortable. System two is slow, deliberate, logical. It's the part that sets goals, makes plans, knows what you should do. System two is the voice in your head right now, agreeing with everything I'm saying, making mental notes about how you're going to change. Here's the problem. Most people try to force System 2 to override System 1 through pure mental effort. But System 1 is faster, stronger, and it never sleeps. System 2 gets exhausted after a few hours of hard use. This is why white-knuckling your way through life is a guaranteed path to failure. The winning strategy, the only strategy that actually works long-term, is programming System 1 to work for you instead of against you. You do this by creating habits, engineering environments, and building systems that make the right choice the automatic choice. You eliminate the need for discipline by removing the decision entirely. Let me give you a real example. My friend Marcus wanted to start working out consistently. For years, he tried the willpower approach. He'd get motivated, join a gym, go hard for 2 weeks, then gradually fade out until his membership was just another monthly charge he ignored. The cycle repeated every few months. Then he tried a different approach. Instead of relying on motivation to get him to the gym, he engineered his environment. He moved to an apartment 3 blocks from a gym. He laid out his workout clothes on his pillow every morning before work so he'd see them the moment he got home. He packed his gym bag and left it by the door. He set a phone reminder that said, "Gym in 10 minutes," at the exact time he typically got home. He removed every decision, every friction point, every opportunity for his brain to negotiate. And you know what happened? He hasn't missed a workout in 18 months. Not because he suddenly developed superhuman discipline, but because he made working out the path of least resistance. This is the foundation of everything we're going to build together. You're not going to become more disciplined by trying harder. You're not going to change your life by forcing yourself to have more willpower. You're going to transform by making transformation automatic. You're going to force your brain to do hard things by making hard things easier than easy things. Chapter 2. The Survival Trap. How your brain's ancient programming is keeping you broke, soft, and stuck. Your brain is not designed to help you succeed. Let that sink in for a moment. The 3 pounds of tissue between your ears has exactly one job: keep you alive. Not happy, not successful, not fulfilled, just alive. And for 300,000 years of human evolution, staying alive meant staying safe, staying with the tribe, staying in the cave, avoiding risks, conserving energy, not trying new things that might get you killed. The humans who ventured too far, eaten by predators. The ones who took big risks usually didn't survive long enough to pass on their genes. The ones who pushed themselves beyond comfortable limits often died before they could reproduce. The survivors, your ancestors, were the cautious ones, the conservative ones, the ones who stayed in their lane, avoided uncertainty, and chose comfort over challenge every single time. Congratulations! You've inherited their brain. This is the operating system you're running. A survival machine that's been programmed over millennia to interpret any form of challenge, change, or discomfort as a potential threat to your existence. And when your brain detects a threat, it has exactly one response: abort mission, return to safety, stay where you are. Every single time you try to do something difficult, start a business, have a tough conversation, push yourself at the gym, learn a new skill, your brain's ancient alarm system starts screaming. It doesn't matter that these things are actually good for you. It doesn't matter that they'll improve your life. All your brain knows is this is unfamiliar. Unfamiliar equals dangerous. Dangerous equals potential death. But here's where it gets really sophisticated and really insidious. Your brain doesn't just scream danger when you try to challenge yourself. That would be too obvious. Instead, it generates perfectly logical sounding thoughts that feel like rational analysis. I'm too tired right now. I'll do it when I have more energy. This isn't the right time. I should wait until conditions are better. Maybe I need to do more research first. I'll start fresh on Monday when I can really commit. These aren't conscious thoughts you're choosing. They're automatic defense mechanisms your brain generates to keep you safe. And they feel so reasonable, so logical, so sensible that you believe them. You think these are your genuine insights about the situation when they're actually just your brain's elaborate excuse factory working overtime to keep you exactly where you are. Here's what's actually happening in your skull when you even think about doing something challenging. The moment the thought crosses your mind, I should work on that project, or I should go to the gym, a small almond-shaped structure called your amygdala immediately starts scanning for threats. Your amygdala is basically your brain's smoke detector, and it has exactly one setting: paranoid. It doesn't care that going to the gym will make you healthier. It doesn't care that working on your business will create the life you want. It only cares that these activities are unfamiliar, require effort, and involve uncertainty, which equals potential danger. Sound the alarm. When your internal alarm goes off, your body floods with stress hormones, cortisol, adrenaline, the whole cocktail. Your heart rate increases. Your breathing gets shallow. Every cell in your body starts screaming, "Retreat! Go back! This is dangerous." Meanwhile, the rational part of your brain, your prefrontal cortex, is trying to override this panic response. It's saying, no, working out is good for us. We want to do this. This aligns with our goals. But here's the problem. Your prefrontal cortex runs on massive amounts of energy and shuts down easily when you're stressed, tired, or overwhelmed. Your amygdala runs on autopilot and never gets tired. In a cage match between reason and emotion, emotion wins 99 times out of 100. This is why you can know exactly what you should do, understand perfectly why you should do it, have a detailed plan for how to do it, and still find yourself completely unable to take action. It's not lack of information. It's not lack of desire. It's a neurological civil war between the part of your brain that wants to grow and the part that wants to survive. But the sabotage goes even deeper than this. Your brain doesn't just resist hard things in the moment. It learns to predict when hard things are coming and creates resistance in advance. This is why Sunday night feels heavy, when you know Monday brings a challenging week. This is why you feel anxiety before an important presentation, even though it's days away. This is why you get a knot in your stomach thinking about a difficult conversation you need to have. Your brain is training you, like Pavlov trained his dogs, to associate challenge with discomfort. It's creating negative feelings before you even encounter the difficulty, hoping you'll avoid the situation entirely. And here's the truly devious part. This anticipatory resistance operates completely below your conscious awareness. You're not choosing to feel anxious about your workout. You're not deciding to feel overwhelmed by your goals. These feelings arise automatically because your brain has learned that the best way to keep you safe is to make you feel bad about challenging yourself. The good news, and trust me, there is very good news here, is that this same learning mechanism can be completely reprogrammed. Your brain's ability to change itself, what neuroscientists call neuroplasticity, means you can literally rewire these resistance patterns. You can train your brain to associate challenge with reward instead of threat. You can reprogram your automatic responses from run away to bring it on. But before we get to the reprogramming, you need to understand the specific resistance patterns your brain uses to keep you paralyzed, because your enemy has a playbook, and once you know the plays, you can defend against them. Pattern 1, the procrastination protocol. Your brain uses procrastination to avoid anything that feels difficult or uncertain. But it doesn't just say, I don't want to do this. That would be too honest. Instead, it says, I'll do it later. This creates the perfect illusion. You're still committed to your goal. You haven't given up. You're just being strategic about timing, except later never comes. Because when later arrives, your brain runs the same protocol. Not right now, later. Pattern 2, the perfection prison. Your brain uses perfectionism to avoid the risk of failure or judgment. Instead of taking messy, imperfect action, it convinces you that you need better conditions, more information, more preparation before you can begin. This keeps you in an endless state of getting ready to get ready. You're always planning, researching, organizing, preparing, but never actually executing. And your brain loves this because planning feels productive without any of the risk that comes with real action. Pattern 3, the rationalization ruse. When the going gets tough, your brain provides perfectly logical reasons why you should quit. This goal isn't actually that important. This isn't the right time in my life. I should focus on something else instead. These rationalizations allow you to abandon challenging pursuits while maintaining your self-image as someone who makes smart decisions. You're not giving up. You're being strategic. You're not quitting. You're pivoting. Understanding these patterns is the first step to breaking free from them. But awareness alone isn't enough. You need to actively reprogram your brain's response to challenge. And that requires specific techniques that work with your neurology instead of fighting against it. The key is what researchers call progressive adaptation, gradually exposing your brain to increasing levels of difficulty while simultaneously rewarding it for pushing through discomfort. This process literally rewires your neural pathways to associate challenge with positive outcomes instead of threats. Think of it like this. Right now, your brain has learned that challenge equals pain. We're going to teach it that challenge equals growth, that discomfort equals progress, that difficulty equals opportunity. And once that rewiring is complete, your brain will stop fighting you. It will start seeking out challenges instead of avoiding them. It will crave difficulty instead of comfort. That's when everything changes. Chapter 3, the Reprogramming Revolution. Installing new operating software in your mind. Now that you understand why your brain resists hard things, it's time to learn how to reprogram it to actively seek them out instead. This isn't about overpowering your brain's resistance through sheer force of will. That's the old, exhausting way that never works long term. This is about systematically changing the underlying code that creates resistance in the first place. Imagine your brain is running outdated software from the Stone Age. Right now, you're operating on survival mode 1.0, constantly scanning for threats, seeking comfort, avoiding risks. But just like you can update your phone to add new features and improve performance, you can update your mental programming to support challenge-seeking behavior instead of comfort-seeking behavior. This reprogramming process has three core components that work together like gears in a machine: trigger redesign, response rewiring, and reward reconstruction. Together, these create what I call the momentum method, a comprehensive system that makes your brain automatically choose difficulty over ease. Part 1. Trigger redesign. Your brain is constantly responding to environmental cues, most of which you don't even consciously notice. The sight of your couch triggers the urge to collapse and watch TV. The notification sound on your phone triggers the compulsion to check it. The smell of fresh bread walking past a bakery triggers cravings. But environmental triggers can work just as powerfully in your favor. The key is systematically engineering your surroundings to eliminate resistance triggers while amplifying execution triggers. Let me share how my friend Sarah did this. She wanted to write a book, but could never find the motivation after work. Every evening, she'd come home, see her comfortable couch and TV, and her brain would immediately default to Netflix. The trigger, couch, led to the response, collapsing, led to the result, no writing. So she redesigned her triggers. She set up a tiny writing corner in her bedroom, just a small desk with her laptop, a plant, and a candle. Before work each morning, she'd open her laptop to a blank document, light the candle, and leave it there. When she got home and walked into her room to change clothes, she'd see the setup waiting for her, laptop open, candle burned down halfway, everything ready. That visual trigger completely bypassed her brain's resistance. The setup was already done. The friction was removed. All she had to do was sit down. And once she sat down, momentum took over. She wrote for 20 minutes that first week, 30 the next. Now she writes for an hour almost every evening, and her book is nearly finished. This is trigger redesign in action. You're not trying to overpower bad triggers with willpower. You're eliminating them and replacing them with triggers that pull you toward your goals. Here's your trigger audit. Walk through your day and identify every environmental cue that either supports or undermines your goals. Your phone on your nightstand triggers morning scrolling. Eliminate it by charging your phone in another room. An empty water bottle on your desk triggers dehydration. Replace it with a full bottle you can't ignore. Workout clothes buried in your closet triggers skipping exercise. Lay them out where you can't miss them. Part 2. Response rewiring. Environmental triggers are external, but your brain also generates internal triggers, thoughts and feelings that normally create resistance. When your brain says, "I don't feel like it," "This is too hard," or "I'll do it tomorrow," instead of negotiating with these thoughts, you implement pre-planned response patterns that bypass resistance entirely. This requires developing what I call response scripts, predetermined mental responses to common resistance patterns that redirect your attention from feelings to actions. When your brain says, "I don't feel like working out," your response script, "Feelings are temporary. Action creates results. I'm putting on my shoes." When your brain says, "This project is overwhelming," your response script, "I only need to focus on the next 5 minutes. What's the smallest step?" When your brain says, "I'm too tired," your response script, "My energy follows my action. Movement creates energy. I'm starting anyway." The key to effective response scripts is that they short-circuit emotional reasoning. Your brain generates resistance through feelings, making you feel like avoiding the challenge is the right choice. Response scripts bypass feelings by focusing your attention on predetermined behaviors regardless of your emotional state. My friend Jake used this technique to overcome his resistance to making sales calls for his business. Every time he thought about calling prospects, his brain would flood him with anxiety and generate excuses. So he created a response script. Fear means growth. I'm dialing before my brain can negotiate. He put a sticky note on his laptop with just those words. Every morning at 9 a.m., he'd read it, and then immediately, before his brain could generate resistance, he'd dial the first number. The first call was always uncomfortable, but by the third call, momentum took over. He's now making 50 calls a week, and his business has tripled. Part 3. Reward Reconstruction. This is the most powerful component of the reprogramming system because it trains your brain at the deepest level. Your current reward system, shaped by evolution and reinforced by modern society, gives you the biggest dopamine hits from easy pleasures. Social media, junk food, binge watching, instant gratification. This creates a neurological problem. Your brain repeats behaviors that generate dopamine, which means it's constantly seeking easy rewards and avoiding activities that don't provide immediate pleasure. Since most meaningful goals require delayed gratification, your brain naturally resists working toward them. Reward reconstruction solves this by artificially creating immediate dopamine hits for challenging behaviors. Every single time you do something difficult, you immediately give yourself a small reward that generates positive feelings. This might mean taking 30 seconds to celebrate after finishing a workout, literally pumping your fist and saying, "Yes," out loud. It might mean treating yourself to your favorite coffee after completing a challenging work session. It might mean checking off a task with a satisfying marker and taking a moment to feel proud. The critical element is that the reward comes immediately after the challenging behavior, creating a direct neurological connection between difficulty and pleasure. Your brain starts learning. Hard thing to good. Feeling. Do more hard things. Over time, this rewiring becomes automatic. Your brain begins to anticipate the reward that comes after challenging behaviors, which generates motivation to seek out challenges instead of avoiding them. What once felt difficult and unpleasant starts to feel exciting and rewarding. I experienced this transformation personally with cold showers. The first time I tried it, every cell in my body screamed at me to stop. But I'd prepared a reward. After the shower, I'd make my favorite breakfast and sit in the sun for 5 minutes, doing nothing but feeling proud of myself. That immediate reward created just enough positive association to make me try it again the next day. and the next. Within 2 weeks, I started actually looking forward to the cold shower, not because the cold became comfortable, but because my brain had learned to associate it with the pride and energy that followed. Now, I actively crave that discomfort because my brain has been reprogrammed to recognize it as the gateway to feeling powerful and alive. The momentum method also incorporates what researchers call implementation intentions, if-then plans that automate your responses to specific situations. Instead of relying on in-the-moment decisions, which is when your brain is most likely to choose comfort, you predetermine your actions for common scenarios. If I feel like skipping my workout, then I'll put on my workout clothes and commit to just 10 minutes. If I feel overwhelmed by a project, then I'll work on it for exactly 15 minutes. If I want to check social media during focus time, then I'll write down 3 important tasks first. Implementation intentions work because they transfer control from your emotional brain to your rational brain. When you encounter a resistance trigger, instead of having to fight through it with willpower, you simply execute your predetermined plan. This eliminates the internal negotiation that usually leads to choosing the easy path. The final element of the momentum method is progressive loading, gradually increasing the difficulty of challenges to build your brain's tolerance for discomfort. Just like physical training involves progressively heavier weights to build strength, mental training involves progressively harder challenges to build psychological resilience. You start with challenges that are difficult but manageable, maybe a 5-minute workout or a 10-minute work session. Then you gradually increase the difficulty as your brain adapts. Each level of difficulty becomes your new baseline, preparing you for the next level. This creates a compound effect where your capacity for handling difficulty grows exponentially over time. What felt impossibly hard 3 months ago feels merely challenging today. What feels challenging today will feel routine 3 months from now. And that's when you realize something profound. You're not the same person anymore. Your brain has been fundamentally reprogrammed. The operating system has been updated. You've evolved from someone who avoids hard things to someone who actively seeks them out. Because now you know the secret. Hard things aren't obstacles to happiness. Hard things are the pathway to everything you've ever wanted. Chapter 4. Environment Architecture. Engineering your world for automatic victory. Listen, your environment is programming your behavior every single second of every single day, whether you realize it or not. Every object you see, every sound you hear, every space you occupy is sending microscopic signals to your brain about what actions to take next. And here's the kicker. Most people are living in environments that are perfectly designed to keep them stuck, distracted, and comfortable. Think about it. You wake up and your phone is right there on the nightstand, screaming for attention. You walk into your kitchen and the snack drawer is at eye level while the healthy food is hidden in the back of the fridge. You sit down to work and your desk is cluttered with distractions, unfinished tasks, and reminders of everything except what you should actually be doing. Your environment is a silent architect, constantly building the person you're becoming. And if you're not deliberately designing it, it's designing you, usually in ways that sabotage everything you claim to want. But here's what the top performers understand that everyone else misses. You can reverse engineer your environment to automatically trigger the behaviors you want while making the wrong behaviors nearly impossible. This isn't about having perfect conditions or spending money you don't have. This is about understanding the psychological principles of environmental design and applying them strategically. Principle 1. Visual hijacking. Your brain processes visual information faster than any other type of input, about 60,000 times faster than text. What you see in your environment immediately influences your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, often without any conscious awareness. This is why walking past a donut shop makes you suddenly realize you're hungry, why seeing your unmade bed makes you want to crawl back in, why a cluttered workspace makes you feel overwhelmed before you even start working. But visual hijacking works just as powerfully when you design it intentionally. My friend Daniel wanted to read more but kept getting sucked into his phone every evening, so he did something ridiculously simple. He placed books everywhere, on his coffee table, on his kitchen counter, next to his bed, on the couch where he usually sat. Within a week, he was reading 30 minutes a day without even trying. Why? Because every time his brain looked for something to do, it saw a book instead of his phone. The visual cue was unavoidable. Here's your visual audit. Make positive cues impossible to ignore while making negative cues invisible. If you want to exercise, your workout equipment should be the first thing you see when you wake up. If you want to eat healthier, healthy foods should dominate your kitchen space. If you want to focus on important work, your workspace should contain only items that support that work. And the opposite, your phone should be out of sight. During focus time, junk food should be removed entirely, not just hidden. Your TV should require effort to turn on, not be ready with the remote sitting right there. Principle 2. Friction engineering. Your brain is fundamentally lazy. It's always looking for the path of least resistance. So you can dramatically influence your behavior by controlling which path requires less effort. Right now, most people's environments make bad behaviors frictionless and good behaviors exhausting. Checking social media? Zero friction. Your phone is always there, unlocked, apps right on the home screen. Going to the gym? Maximum friction. You have to get dressed, pack a bag, drive there, find parking. Reverse this equation and watch your life transform. My friend Rachel wanted to stop wasting hours on Instagram every night. She tried willpower. She tried self-control. She tried deleting the app and reinstalling it the next day. Nothing worked until she added friction. She logged out of Instagram every time she closed the app. She deleted it from her phone entirely and could only access it through a web browser on her laptop, which was in another room. She changed her password to something complex and didn't save it, meaning she had to manually type it in every single time. Suddenly, checking Instagram required 10 times more effort than reading a book or working on her side business. Within 2 weeks, her Instagram usage dropped from 3 hours a day to maybe 20 minutes twice a week. Not because she developed superhuman discipline, but because she made the wrong choice harder than the right choice. Friction engineering is incredibly powerful because it works with your brain's laziness instead of fighting against it. Want to eat healthier? Meal prep on Sunday so eating well requires less effort than ordering takeout. Want to work out consistently? Join a gym that's on your way home from work, so going there requires less effort than driving past it. Want to stop staying up too late? Put your phone charger in a different room, so doom scrolling in bed requires more effort than just going to sleep. Principle 3. Context. Anchoring. Your brain loves linking behaviors together in chains. You already have dozens of automatic routines that require zero willpower or decision-making. The key is using these existing chains as anchors for new behaviors you want to develop. This technique is called habit stacking, and it's absurdly effective when done correctly. Instead of trying to create new habits from scratch, which requires enormous mental energy, you attach them to behaviors that already happen automatically. For example, if you already drink coffee every morning, automatic behavior, you can stack a new habit onto it. After I pour my coffee, I immediately write in my journal for 5 minutes. If you already brush your teeth before bed, automatic behavior, you can add, after I brush my teeth, I read for 10 minutes. The key is making the connection explicit and immediate. Not sometime after coffee, but immediately after pouring my coffee. Not before bed, but immediately after brushing my teeth. The tighter the connection, the stronger the automatic trigger becomes. I used context anchoring to build a meditation practice. For years, I tried to meditate and failed miserably. I'd forget, make excuses, skip days. Then I anchored it to my morning shower, an automatic behavior I never skip. After I finish my shower, before I even get dressed, I sit on the floor and meditate for 10 minutes. That simple anchor transformed everything. I went from meditating maybe twice a month to literally every single day for the past year. Not because I became more disciplined, but because I chained the new behavior to an existing automatic routine. Principle 4. Elimination architecture. Here's a truth that will save you years of struggle. The most powerful form of self-control is not having to use self-control at all. And the best way to avoid temptation is making temptation literally unavailable. This goes beyond friction engineering. This is complete elimination. If you want to stop eating junk food, don't just hide it. Remove it from your living space entirely. If you want to stop wasting time on certain websites, don't just use willpower to avoid them. Install blockers that make accessing them impossible during work hours. If you want to wake up earlier, don't just rely on an alarm. Remove the option to hit snooze by putting your alarm across the room. Environmental elimination works because it removes the decision-making process entirely. Your brain can't choose what isn't available. You make one difficult decision, changing your environment, that eliminates hundreds of smaller decisions that would otherwise require willpower. My friend Chris struggled with late-night snacking. Every night around 10 p.m., he'd find himself in the kitchen eating whatever he could find. He tried self-control. He tried eating earlier. He tried going to bed earlier. Nothing worked because his environment still contained food that was easily accessible. Then he tried elimination architecture. He stopped buying any food that didn't require cooking. No chips, no cookies, no easy snacks. If he wanted to eat something at 10 p.m., he'd have to actually cook a meal, which his tired brain wasn't willing to do. Within a week, his late-night snacking completely disappeared, not because he developed more discipline, but because he eliminated the option. Principle 5. Social gravitational fields. The people in your environment have more influence over your behavior than almost anything else. If you're surrounded by people who avoid challenges, make excuses, and settle for mediocrity, their behaviors will become your norm through a process called social contagion. If you're surrounded by people who embrace difficulty, take action, and push for excellence, their behaviors will pull you upward. This isn't motivational talk. This is neuroscience. Your brain has mirror neurons that literally fire when you observe others performing actions, creating neural patterns that make you more likely to perform those same actions. You're constantly absorbing the behaviors, attitudes, and standards of the people around you, whether you realize it or not. This means you need to be ruthlessly intentional about your social environment. Who you spend time with, what conversations you have, what content you consume, what communities you participate in. All of this is programming your subconscious mind about what's normal and possible. I experienced this transformation firsthand. For years, I was surrounded by people who talked about their dreams but never took action. Our conversations were endless discussions about someday and what if. And guess what? I became exactly like them, full of ideas, zero execution. Then I deliberately changed my social environment. I joined a community of entrepreneurs who were actually building businesses. I started having coffee with people who were doing what I wanted to do. I consumed content from people who modeled the behaviors I wanted to develop. Within 6 months, my entire baseline shifted. What used to feel like extraordinary effort, working on weekends, waking up early, having difficult conversations, became normal because everyone around me was doing it. The gravitational field of my social environment pulled me upward automatically. You don't need to abandon all your friends or become some antisocial hermit, but you do need to deliberately surround yourself with influences that support the person you're trying to become. Join groups where challenging behavior is the norm. Find accountability partners who expect you to follow through. Consume content from people who model excellence instead of mediocrity. Principle 6. Time container design. Most people leave their schedule completely open, which means their brain defaults to the easiest available option at any given moment. But you can eliminate massive amounts of decision-making by predetermining when challenging behaviors will occur. This is called time blocking, and it's one of the most underrated tools for forcing your brain to do hard things. You schedule your workouts like unmovable appointments. You block time for important projects and treat that time as sacred. You create non-negotiable routines that happen at the same time every day, regardless of how you feel. Time container design works because it removes the when from challenging behaviors. Your brain doesn't have to decide when to work out, when to work on important projects, when to engage in growth activities. These decisions have already been made, which eliminates one of the biggest sources of resistance. My morning routine is completely time-blocked. 5:30 a.m., wake up. 5:35 a.m., cold shower. 5:45 a.m., meditation. 6 a.m., workout. 7 a.m., breakfast while reading. I don't decide whether to do these things. I don't negotiate with myself. The time containers are preset, and I simply execute. This automation has freed up massive amounts of mental energy that I used to waste on decision-making. Now that energy goes toward creative work, problem solving, and building my business instead of debating with myself about whether I feel like working out. Your environment isn't just where you live, it's what you become. Design it deliberately, and you won't need discipline. You'll have automatic victory built into every aspect of your day. Chapter 5. The Habit Fortress. Building behaviors that never break. Let me tell you something that might hurt to hear. Everything you are right now is the result of habits you've been repeating for years. Your body, your bank account, your relationships, your career, all of it is the compound interest of your daily behaviors. And everything you'll become 5 years from now is being determined by the habits you're choosing to build, starting today. Most people understand this intellectually, but where they fail, where you probably failed in the past, is in how they approach habit formation. They try to change everything overnight, relying on motivation and willpower to sustain behaviors that feel unnatural and difficult. This is why New Year's resolutions die by February, why gym memberships become expensive monthly guilt payments, why people start 10 different habits and stick with 0. But here's what nobody tells you. Your brain creates habits through a specific neurological loop. And if you understand this loop, you can engineer habits that stick permanently without requiring superhuman willpower. The habit loop has 3 parts: cue, routine, reward. Every habit starts with a trigger that signals your brain to initiate an automatic behavior, followed by the behavior itself, followed by some form of reward that reinforces the pattern. Understanding this loop shows you exactly how to design habits that become as automatic as breathing. The minimum viable habit strategy. The biggest mistake people make with habit formation is starting too big. They commit to hour-long workouts when they haven't exercised in years. They promise to read for an hour when they haven't touched a book in months. They decide to wake up at 5 a.m. when they currently roll out of bed at 9. Your brain sees these massive commitments and generates overwhelming resistance. The gap between where you are and where you're trying to go feels impossible. So your brain does what it does best, keeps you exactly where you are. The solution is starting so small that your brain can't generate resistance. I call this the minimum viable habit, making your initial behavior so tiny and easy that failure is basically impossible. Want to start exercising? Don't commit to full workouts. Commit to putting on your workout clothes. That's it. Just get dressed. Want to start reading? Don't commit to entire books. Commit to reading 1 page, literally 1 page. Want to start meditating? Don't commit to 20-minute sessions. Commit to sitting quietly for 60 seconds. This might sound absurdly simple, but here's why it works. Your brain can't generate significant resistance to behaviors that require almost no effort. And once you start the behavior, once you're in your workout clothes, once you've read that 1 page, momentum naturally carries you forward. Most days, you'll do more than your minimum commitment. But even on days when you don't, you still get the most important thing. You prove to your brain that you're someone who follows through. Every time you complete your minimum viable habit, you create positive reinforcement that makes the behavior more automatic. My friend Angela, wanted to start writing consistently. For months, she tried committing to writing 1,000 words a day. She'd last maybe 3 days before the resistance became overwhelming and she'd quit. The cycle repeated constantly. Start with enthusiasm, burn out within a week, give up. Then she switched to a minimum viable habit. Write one sentence, just one sentence every single day, no matter what. That tiny commitment felt so manageable that her brain couldn't resist it. And you know what happened? Once she wrote that one sentence, she usually kept going. Some days she'd write 100 words. Some days 500. Some days just that one sentence. But she never missed a day. 6 months later, she's written consistently every single day and completed an entire manuscript. Not because she developed incredible discipline, but because she made the habit too small to fail. The chain integration method. Once you have a minimum viable habit established, you can use your existing strong habits as anchors for new behaviors. This technique, which I mentioned earlier, is so powerful it deserves deeper exploration. Your brain already has dozens of automatic routines that happen every day without conscious thought. You wake up, brush your teeth, make coffee, check your phone, take a shower, get dressed. These behaviors are so ingrained that you could do them half asleep. These existing habits are golden opportunities for integration. Instead of trying to create new habits from scratch, you attach them directly to behaviors that are already automatic. The formula is simple. After existing habit, I will new habit. After I pour my coffee, I will write for 5 minutes. After I get home from work, I will change into workout clothes. After I brush my teeth at night, I will read for 10 minutes. The key is specificity and immediacy. Not after coffee, but immediately after pouring my coffee. Not in the evening, but immediately after walking through the door. I built an entire morning routine using this method. I started with one anchor. After I turn off my alarm, I immediately go take a cold shower. Then I added, after my cold shower, I immediately meditate for 10 minutes. Then, after meditation, I immediately work out. Then, after working out, I immediately make my power breakfast. Each behavior triggers the next automatically. My brain doesn't debate or negotiate because the chain is so established that breaking it feels unnatural. The entire routine, wake up, shower, meditate, work out, breakfast, happens like clockwork without requiring any decision-making. The visibility scoreboard. Your brain needs immediate feedback to strengthen behaviors. Without clear evidence of progress, motivation fades and habits weaken. This is where tracking becomes crucial. Not in some complicated app with 17 metrics, but through simple, visual, immediate feedback. The most effective tracking system is deliberately low-tech. A physical calendar on your wall with a big red X marked on every day you complete your habit. The visual satisfaction of seeing a growing chain of X's provides a small dopamine hit that reinforces the behavior. This technique, famously used by Jerry Seinfeld to build his comedy writing habit, works because of something psychologists call the Zeigarnik effect. Your brain hates incomplete patterns. Once you have a streak of 5 days, then 10, then 20, breaking that chain feels psychologically painful. The streak itself becomes motivation to continue. I have 3 calendars on my wall tracking my core habits: exercise, writing, and cold exposure. Every day I complete each habit, I mark a big satisfying X. I'm currently on day 247 of unbroken exercise, day 189 of daily writing, and day 156 of cold showers. Would I rather skip my workout today? Sometimes. But would I be willing to break a 247-day streak? Absolutely not. The visual chain has become more powerful than any temporary resistance my brain generates. The identity metamorphosis. But here's the ultimate truth about sustainable habit formation. The most powerful habits are those that align with your identity. When you see yourself as a certain type of person, the associated behaviors feel natural and automatic rather than forced. This requires shifting your self-talk from outcome-based to identity-based language. Instead of, "I want to lose weight," you say, "I am someone who takes care of their body." Instead of, "I want to be successful," you say, "I am someone who executes on their commitments." Instead of, "I want to be disciplined," you say, "I am someone who does hard things." This subtle linguistic shift programs your subconscious mind to generate behaviors that match your identity. Your brain works to maintain consistency between who you believe you are and how you behave. The transformation happens through repeated proof. Every time you do something hard, you accumulate evidence that you're someone who does hard things. Every time you follow through on a commitment, you prove you're someone who executes. Every time you choose growth over comfort, you reinforce your identity as someone who embraces challenge. Over time, this identity becomes so strong that behaviors that used to require enormous effort feel like natural expressions of who you are. You're not forcing yourself to work out. You're just being the person you are. You're not making yourself work on your goals. You're just living according to your identity. I experienced this identity shift with writing. For years, I called myself someone who wants to write. Writing always felt like something I had to force myself to do. Then I changed my identity to "I am a writer." Suddenly, writing wasn't something I had to make myself do. It was something I did because that's who I was. Writers write. And since I was a writer, writing became automatic. Not easy, but automatic. The habit fortress you're building isn't about forcing yourself to do things through willpower. It's about constructing an identity, supported by systems, reinforced by tracking, anchored to existing routines, and started with behavior so small that failure is impossible. Build this fortress correctly, and your habits will outlast your motivation. They'll survive your bad days. They'll persist through life's chaos because they're not dependent on how you feel. They're expressions of who you are. Chapter 6. Mental Leverage. Multiplying your psychological power by 10 times. Most people approach challenges like they're pushing a boulder uphill. Pure force, maximum effort, grinding until they're exhausted. But what if, instead of pushing harder, you could pull easier? What if, instead of fighting your brain's resistance, you could redirect its power toward your goals? This is the principle behind mental leverage, using psychological techniques that multiply your effectiveness while requiring less energy. Think about physical leverage. A small person with a lever can move objects that would be impossible to move with muscle alone. The lever doesn't make them stronger. It amplifies the strength they already have. Mental leverage works exactly the same way. It takes the motivation, focus, and determination you already possess and amplifies it by working with your brain's natural mechanisms instead of against them. Technique 1. Pain, pleasure, rebalancing. Right now, your brain has learned to associate challenging activities with negative feelings, stress, anxiety, fatigue, discomfort. This creates automatic resistance every time you encounter something difficult. But you can systematically retrain your brain to associate challenge with positive feelings, excitement, pride, growth, achievement. This isn't positive thinking or lying to yourself. This is neural reprogramming based on where you direct your attention. By consistently focusing on the positive aspects of difficult experiences while minimizing attention to negative aspects, you literally rewire your neural pathways. When you're doing something hard, instead of thinking, "This is exhausting," or "I want this to be over," you consciously redirect your attention to thoughts like, "I'm getting stronger," or "This is where transformation happens." Instead of focusing on the discomfort you're feeling, you focus on the progress you're making. I do this every single time I'm in a cold shower. The initial shock is brutal. My body wants to jump out immediately. But instead of focusing on how cold it is, I focus on how alive I feel, how my nervous system is being trained, how I'm proving to myself that I can handle discomfort. By the end of 60 seconds, I'm actually smiling. This consistent reframing has completely changed my relationship with discomfort. Things that used to feel like torture now feel like opportunities. My brain has learned that discomfort equals growth, so it actually seeks out challenging situations instead of avoiding them. Technique 2. Future self-cinema. Your brain struggles with abstract concepts like future success, but it responds incredibly powerfully to concrete visual images. When you can vividly see and feel the person you'll become by doing hard things, your brain treats that future reality as achievable and desirable. But most people visualize weakly, vague, abstract images without emotional power. Effective future self-visualization involves all your senses and creates such vivid detail that your brain believes the future is real. You don't just see yourself achieving your goals. You hear the sounds of that environment. You feel the emotions of success. You experience the physical sensations. You visualize specific scenes with cinematic detail, walking into rooms with confidence, having conversations with authority, living in the body you're building, enjoying the lifestyle your hard work created. I spend 10 minutes every morning in what I call future self-cinema. I close my eyes and visualize specific scenes from my life 1 year from now with such vivid detail that it feels like memory instead of imagination. I see myself giving a keynote speech to thousands of people. I feel the weight of confidence in my chest. I hear the audience responding. I experience the satisfaction of knowing I built this through daily hard work. This practice doesn't just motivate me, it literally changes my behavior throughout the day. When I'm tempted to skip a workout or waste time on distractions, my brain remembers that future version of myself and automatically chooses behaviors that move me toward it. Technique 3. Identity hijacking. Instead of relying on external motivation or willpower, you tap into the powerful psychological drive for self-consistency. When your brain believes you are a certain type of person, it automatically generates behaviors that match that identity. This requires consciously choosing an identity that naturally does the hard things you want to do, then consistently acting in alignment with that identity until it becomes your default sense of self. Instead of, I want to get in shape, you adopt, I am an athlete. Instead of, I should work harder, you adopt, I am relentless. Instead of, I want to be successful, you adopt, I am a builder. The key is acting in alignment with this identity, especially when it feels unnatural. Every action you take that aligns with your chosen identity accumulates evidence. Every action that contradicts your old identity weakens it. My friend Nicole struggled with consistency until she adopted a new identity. She stopped saying, I'm trying to be healthier, and started saying, I'm an athlete. At first, it felt fake. She barely worked out twice a week, but she kept acting like an athlete, meal prepping, prioritizing sleep, never missing training sessions. Within 6 months, something shifted. The identity stopped feeling fake and started feeling true. Now she works out 6 days a week, not because she forces herself, but because that's what athletes do. And since she's an athlete, training is just what she does. Technique 4. Systems thinking. Leverage. Your brain gets overwhelmed when focusing on big, distant outcomes, but it functions optimally when focusing on small, immediate actions. Systems thinking redirects your mental energy from results to processes. Instead of, I need to build a successful business, you think, I need to make 10 sales calls today. Instead of, I need to lose 40 pounds, you think, I need to make good choices at this meal. Instead of, I need to write a book, you think, I need to write for 30 minutes. This breaks overwhelming goals into manageable actions while maintaining forward progress. Your brain handles small challenges much more easily than large ones, but small challenges consistently applied create massive results over time. I learned this lesson the hard way. For years, I focused on the outcome. I want to build a successful business. That big goal felt so far away that I get paralyzed and take no action. Then I shifted to systems thinking, I will work on my business for 2 focused hours every morning. I stopped measuring success by revenue and started measuring it by whether I completed my 2 hours. Suddenly, success was achievable every single day. And you know what? Focusing on the system instead of the outcome actually created better outcomes. My business grew faster than it ever had when I was obsessed with results. Technique 5. Social leverage architecture. Your brain is wired to care deeply about how others perceive you. This drive can be redirected to support challenging behaviors instead of comfortable ones. Social leverage harnesses your natural desire for approval and reputation to create automatic motivation. This might involve making public commitments to your goals, so your brain's desire to maintain reputation motivates consistent action. It might involve joining communities where challenging behavior is the norm, so your brain's desire to fit in drives you toward difficult activities. It might involve finding accountability partners who expect you to follow through. I use social leverage heavily. Every Sunday, I share my weekly goals with my accountability group. 5 people who are building businesses and pushing themselves hard. Knowing they're watching creates psychological pressure that's stronger than any internal motivation. When I don't feel like waking up early to work, I remember that I'll have to report my progress on Sunday. My brain's desire to avoid looking lazy or inconsistent pushes me out of bed more effectively than any alarm clock. Technique 6. Temporal leverage. Instead of trying to maintain consistent performance throughout the day, you identify when your mental energy is highest and schedule your most difficult tasks during those peak periods. For most people, mental energy peaks in the first few hours after waking and gradually depletes throughout the day. This means difficult cognitive tasks, important decisions, and challenging projects should happen as early as possible. Later, when mental energy is lower, you focus on easier, more routine activities. I learned this through painful trial and error. I used to schedule my creative work, writing, strategizing, problem solving, in the afternoon after getting through emails and meetings. By the time I sat down to do important work, my mental energy was depleted. I'd struggle for hours to produce mediocre results. Now I do exactly the opposite. I wake up and immediately dive into my most important creative work while my mind is fresh. Email doesn't get touched until after lunch. Meetings happen in the afternoon. This single shift multiplied my creative output by at least 3 times while requiring less total effort. Mental leverage isn't about working harder. It's about working smarter by aligning your efforts with how your brain actually functions. Stop pushing boulders uphill. Start using levers that amplify your strength. Chapter 7. The Execution Engine. Turning intention into unstoppable action. Here's a harsh truth most people never face. You're not failing because you don't know what to do. You're failing because you don't do what you know. You're stuck in an endless loop of preparation, reading books, watching videos, making plans, gathering information, convincing yourself that you're making progress when really you're just procrastinating with extra steps. Preparation without execution is just sophisticated avoidance. And the reason most people never execute isn't lack of knowledge or motivation. It's because they're relying on feelings to bridge the gap between planning and doing. They're waiting to feel ready or feel motivated before they take action. But here's the secret nobody tells you: that feeling never comes. You don't feel ready and then act. You act and then you feel ready. What you need isn't more information or better timing. You need an execution engine, a systematic approach that makes action automatic regardless of how you feel, what obstacles appear, or how much resistance your brain generates. The execution engine operates on 3 fundamental principles: immediate action bias, momentum compounding, and forced accountability. Together, these create a system that turns you from someone who thinks about doing things into someone who relentlessly does things. Immediate action and bias, the 5-minute revolution. Most people, when faced with a decision or opportunity, default to analysis. They ask themselves, should I do this? Is this the right time? What if it doesn't work? Maybe I should think about it more. And while they're thinking, the moment passes. The opportunity disappears. The resistance builds. Immediate action bias flips this script entirely. Instead of defaulting to analysis, you default to action. Instead of asking, should I do this? You ask, how quickly can I start? Instead of perfecting your plan, you take imperfect action and improve as you go. The most powerful tool for implementing immediate action bias is what I call the 5-minute rule. When your brain resists starting something difficult, you commit to doing it for just 5 minutes. Not the whole task. Not until it's complete. Just 5 minutes. This bypasses resistance because 5 minutes feels manageable to your brain. It's not threatening. It's not overwhelming. It's just 5 minutes. But here's the magic. The hardest part of any task is starting. Once you're in motion, momentum naturally carries you forward. What you thought would be 5 minutes turns into 20, 30, sometimes hours of productive work. I use this every single morning with my writing. My brain always resists when I sit down to write. Always. It doesn't matter how motivated I am or how much I love what I'm working on, there's still that initial resistance. So I tell myself, just 5 minutes. Write for 5 minutes and you can stop. I've been doing this for 2 years. You know how many times I've actually stopped after 5 minutes? Maybe 3. Once I start, momentum takes over, and I usually write for 90 minutes to 2 hours. But I never commit to that up front because my brain would resist. I commit to 5 minutes, which feels easy, and let momentum do the rest. Momentum compounding, the snowball strategy. Your brain responds to momentum. When you're taking action and seeing progress, even tiny progress, your psychological energy increases. When you're stuck and stagnant, your energy depletes. The execution engine leverages this by creating a chain of small wins that build psychological momentum for bigger challenges. Instead of trying to go from 0 to 100 immediately, which triggers massive resistance, you start with the easiest possible action that creates forward movement, then gradually increase difficulty. This might look like Day 1, you put on workout clothes. Day 2, you put on workout clothes and do 1 push-up. Day 3, you do 5 push-ups. Day 4, a full 5-minute workout. Each action is easy enough that your brain can't generate significant resistance, but collectively, they build unstoppable momentum. My friend Jamal used this strategy to overcome his resistance to making sales calls for his business. He was terrified of rejection and would procrastinate for hours before making a single call. So he used momentum compounding. Week 1, just open the contact list. That's it. No calls required, just look at the list. Week 2, pick 1 person and write down what you'd say. Still no calls. Week 3, dial the number but hang up before it rings. Practice the motion. Week 4, make 1 call. Just 1. By the time he made that first call in week 4, the momentum he'd built made it feel almost easy. He'd proven to himself hundreds of times that he could take the small steps leading up to it. Now he makes 30 calls a week without even thinking about it. Environmental forcing, making the right choice inevitable. The most sophisticated aspect of the execution engine is designing your environment so that taking action becomes easier than avoiding action. You're not relying on willpower to overcome obstacles. You're removing the obstacles entirely and creating conditions where execution is the path of least resistance. If you want to work out consistently, you don't rely on motivation. You lay out your workout clothes the night before, so they're the first thing you see. You pack your gym bag and put it by the door. You schedule your workout in your calendar like an unmovable meeting. You tell your accountability partner you'll text them after you finish. You've created a system where not working out requires more effort than just doing it. I learned this lesson with my morning routine. For years, I struggled to wake up early. I'd set my alarm for 5:30 a.m. with the best intentions, but when it went off, I'd hit snooze and wake up at 7 a.m. feeling guilty and defeated. Then I implemented environmental forcing. I moved my alarm across the room so I had to physically get out of bed to turn it off. I put a glass of water and my pre-workout supplement on my nightstand, so the first thing I did after waking was drink them. I laid out my workout clothes on the floor between my bed and the bathroom, so I literally had to step over them. I scheduled a 6 a.m. workout call with my friend Kevin. If I didn't show up, I'd be letting him down. With all these environmental forces in place, sleeping in became harder than just getting up. I haven't hit snooze in over a year, not because I developed incredible discipline, but because I engineered my environment to make the right choice inevitable. The non-negotiable protocol. The execution engine requires establishing certain behaviors as completely non-negotiable regardless of circumstances. These become iron rules that you never break under any conditions. They're not goals you aim for or habits you try to maintain. They're identity-level commitments that define who you are. For example, I never skip 2 workouts in a row. Not I try to work out regularly, but an absolute rule. If you miss Monday, Tuesday is non-negotiable. No excuses, no exceptions. Or, I always complete my most important task before checking email. Not, I usually start with important work, but an iron rule. Email doesn't exist until the important task is done. Or, I never make major decisions when I'm emotional. Not, I try to be rational, but a non-negotiable protocol. If you're angry, anxious, or upset, major decisions wait until you're calm. Non-negotiable rules work because they eliminate decision-making entirely. Your brain can't debate or rationalize its way out of something that's been predetermined as non-negotiable. This preserves mental energy for more important decisions while ensuring critical behaviors happen automatically. I have 3 non-negotiables that have transformed my life. I never start my day with my phone. Morning routine first, digital world second. I never miss my morning creative work session. Even if it's only 15 minutes, it happens. I never go to bed without reviewing my day and planning tomorrow. These aren't aspirations. They're laws that govern my behavior. Breaking them isn't even an option my brain considers anymore. Implementation intentions. Pre-programming your responses. The execution engine includes predetermined if-then plans for every possible resistance scenario. Instead of hoping you'll make good decisions in the moment, which is when your brain is most likely to choose comfort, you decide your responses in advance. If I feel like skipping my workout, then I put on my workout clothes and commit to 10 minutes. If I feel overwhelmed by a project, then I work on it for exactly 15 minutes. If I want to check social media during focus time, then I write down 3 tasks I need to complete first. These implementation intentions transfer control from your emotional brain to your rational brain. When resistance arises, you don't have to fight through it with willpower. You simply execute your predetermined plan. I have implementation intentions for every common resistance pattern I experience. If I don't feel like writing, I open my laptop and write 1 sentence. If I'm tempted to hit snooze, I count down from 5 and stand up on 0. If I want to order takeout, I wait 20 minutes and drink a glass of water first. If I catch myself scrolling mindlessly, then I immediately stand up and do 20 push-ups. These pre-programmed responses eliminate the internal negotiation that usually leads to choosing the easy path. My brain knows the rules. When resistance appears, the response is automatic. Forced accountability, creating external pressure. The final component of the execution engine is accountability triggers that create external pressure to follow through on commitments. This works by making the cost of not executing higher than the discomfort of executing. Public commitments put your reputation on the line. When you tell people what you're going to do, your brain's desire to maintain credibility creates automatic motivation. Accountability partners who check your progress create social pressure. When someone expects you to follow through, your brain generates energy to meet those expectations. Financial consequences create real stakes. When failing to execute costs you money, your brain suddenly finds the motivation it couldn't locate before. I use all three. Every Sunday, I share my weekly goals with my mastermind group, 5 entrepreneurs who hold each other accountable. Every goal I set has a specific person I'm accountable to who expects an update. And for my biggest commitments, I use financial stakes through apps that donate my money to causes I hate if I don't follow through. Does this sound extreme? Maybe. But you know what's more extreme? Spending years stuck in the same place. Because you couldn't force yourself to execute. The execution engine doesn't care about your feelings or your excuses. It creates conditions where action becomes inevitable. Stop preparing. Stop planning. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. Build your execution engine and become unstoppable. Chapter 8. Deep Focus Fortress. Training your mind for laser concentration. In a world specifically engineered to destroy your attention span, the ability to focus deeply on important work has become a superpower that separates the exceptional from the mediocre. While everyone else's brain is fragmented across 17 different apps, jumping from task to task without ever achieving meaningful depth, those who master deep focus can accomplish more in 3 hours than most people accomplish in 3 days. But here's what nobody tells you about focus. It's not a talent you're born with or without. Focus is a muscle that grows stronger with training and weaker with neglect. Every time you resist a distraction and maintain concentration, you strengthen that muscle. Every time you surrender to distraction, you weaken it. The modern world has created an attention crisis that goes far beyond clinical diagnoses. The average person checks their phone over 150 times per day and can maintain focus on a single task for less than 11 minutes before interrupting themselves. Your brain has been systematically trained to crave constant stimulation and immediate gratification, making sustained concentration feel almost impossible. This creates a vicious cycle. The harder your task, the more your brain seeks distraction. The more you give in to distraction, the weaker your focus becomes. The weaker your focus, the harder tasks feel. And round you go, getting progressively worse at the exact skill that would transform your life. Breaking this cycle requires understanding exactly how attention works and implementing specific protocols that retrain your brain to sustain concentration for extended periods. Understanding deep focus states deep focus doesn't happen in bursts, It operates in states. Your brain needs time to eliminate surface-level mental chatter and reach the deeper levels of concentration where complex thinking and creative breakthroughs occur. This typically requires 15 to 20 minutes of sustained attention before you reach peak cognitive performance. But most people never experience this state because they interrupt themselves long before reaching it. They check their phone at minute 7. They switch tasks at minute 10. They never push through the initial discomfort into the zone where real work happens. I learned this the hard way. For years, I'd sit down to write and give up after 15 minutes, frustrated that nothing good was coming out. I thought I just wasn't creative or talented enough. Then I discovered the 15-minute threshold. That's exactly when my brain wants to quit, because the initial discomfort is highest right before you break through into flow state. Now, when I write, I commit to at least 30 minutes, no matter what. The first 15 minutes usually feel terrible. Words don't flow. Ideas seem stupid. Everything feels forced. But if I push through, something shifts around minute 20. Suddenly, I'm in flow. Ideas come faster than I can type them. Hours pass like minutes. That breakthrough only happens if you refuse to quit during the uncomfortable zone. Most people quit at minute 15, right before the magic happens. The distraction elimination protocol. Deep focus requires completely eliminating external distractions, not managing them, not reducing them, eliminating them. Your phone should be in another room, not just on silent. Your workspace should contain only items related to your current task. All notifications should be disabled. Every potential interruption should be blocked or removed. This isn't about having superhuman self-control. This is about creating an environment where distractions literally cannot reach you. If your phone is in another room, you can't check it impulsively. If your workspace contains only your laptop and a notebook, there's nothing else to grab your attention. But external distractions are only half the battle. Internal distractions, the constant stream of random thoughts, worries, and mental chatter, are even harder to manage. This is where the attention anchor technique becomes essential. The attention anchor technique. An attention anchor is a predetermined focal point you return to whenever your mind wanders. This might be your breathing, a specific phrase you repeat internally, or a physical sensation you maintain awareness of. When you notice your attention has drifted, and it will drift constantly, especially in the beginning, you don't fight it or judge yourself. You simply acknowledge the distraction and gently return to your anchor, then continue working. This process of noticing distraction and returning to focus is like doing mental reps at the gym. Each time you bring your attention back, you strengthen your concentration muscle. The goal isn't to eliminate mind wandering completely. That's impossible. The goal is to notice it quickly and redirect your attention back to your intended focus. I use my breathing as my attention anchor. When I notice my mind has wandered during a focus session, I take 3 deep breaths and return to my work. I do this dozens of times per session in the beginning, but over months of practice, the wandering happens less frequently and I catch it faster. Progressive focus training. Like physical training, focus training requires progressive overload. gradually increasing difficulty while maintaining high-quality attention. You start with periods that feel manageable, maybe 15 or 20 minutes, then slowly extend them as your capacity improves. The key is maintaining intensity throughout the entire period rather than trying to focus for longer durations at lower quality. During deep focus sessions, your brain should feel slightly strained, like a muscle being challenged during exercise. If focus feels effortless, you're probably not pushing hard enough. You're working on tasks below your skill level. If it feels overwhelming, you're trying to do too much too soon. You need to reduce difficulty or duration. The optimal challenge level creates manageable difficulty that builds strength without causing burnout. I started with 20-minute focus sessions, just 20 minutes of uninterrupted work on my most difficult task. After a week, I increased to 30 minutes, then 45, then 60. Now I regularly do 90-minute deep focus sessions where I produce more quality work than I used to produce in entire days of scattered effort. But I built up to this over months. You can't jump from 11-minute attention spans to 90-minute deep work overnight. Progressive training is the only sustainable path. Cognitive load management. Not all mental work requires the same type of energy. Decision-making burns different cognitive resources than creative thinking. Analytical problem-solving uses different neural pathways than strategic planning. Understanding these differences allows you to allocate your cognitive resources strategically. Schedule creative work when your mind is freshest, typically first thing in the morning. Save analytical work for when you're slightly tired. Many people think more logically in the afternoon. Reserve routine tasks for when your energy is lowest. End of the day. The concept of attention residue explains why switching between tasks destroys focus quality. When you move from one task to another, part of your attention remains stuck on the previous task, reducing your cognitive capacity for the new one. This is why checking email or social media during focus sessions is so damaging. It leaves mental residue that contaminates your concentration for much longer than the distraction itself. One 30-second email check can destroy 15 minutes of deep focus. My rule is simple. During deep focus sessions, task switching doesn't exist. I work on one thing and one thing only until the session is complete. Email, messages, other projects, they don't exist until my focus work is done. Energy management for focus. Your brain's ability to concentrate fluctuates throughout the day based on sleep quality, nutrition, stress levels, and natural circadian rhythms. Ignoring these factors and trying to force focus when your brain is depleted is like trying to sprint on a broken ankle. Technically possible, but stupid. Most people experience peak mental clarity in the morning, typically within the first 3 hours of waking. This is when your brain is most capable of sustained concentration and complex thinking. But this prime cognitive real estate is often wasted on low-value activities, checking email, scrolling social media, attending pointless meetings. I protect my morning focus time like it's the most valuable asset I own, because it is. No meetings before noon, no email before 11 a.m., no social media until evening. My first 3 hours awake are reserved exclusively for deep creative work on my most important project. This single change multiplied my productive output by at least 5 times. Not because I'm working more hours, but because I'm using my peak focus time for peak focus work. Deep focus isn't a luxury. It's the skill that determines whether you create extraordinary work or mediocre work. Build your focus fortress and watch your results explode. Chapter 9. Pressure Performance. Becoming Unstoppable. When stakes are highest, everything you've learned so far means nothing if you can't execute when it actually matters. When pressure is crushing, when stakes are enormous, when failure would be devastating. This is where most people's training completely fails them. Techniques that work perfectly during practice sessions crumble when real consequences are on the line. The ultimate test of your mental programming isn't how well you perform when conditions are perfect. It's whether you can access your highest capabilities when pressure is maximum. This is where elite performers separate themselves from everyone else. Pressure has a unique ability to expose weaknesses in your mental programming that remain hidden during normal conditions. Confidence that feels unshakable during low-stakes situations can evaporate when facing situations that truly matter. Skills that feel automatic during practice can become impossible under pressure. This happens because pressure doesn't just add difficulty to existing challenges. It fundamentally changes how your brain operates. Under high pressure, your nervous system shifts into survival mode, flooding your body with stress hormones that impair complex thinking, reduce creativity, and create tunnel vision. But here's what separates elite performers. They've learned to use pressure as a performance enhancer rather than a performance destroyer. Instead of being weakened by high-stakes situations, they're energized by them. Instead of being intimidated by consequences, they're motivated by them. Stress inoculation training. This transformation requires systematic exposure to progressively challenging pressure situations while maintaining optimal performance. You're training your nervous system to remain calm and effective when stress levels would normally cause breakdown. Stress inoculation begins with controlled exposure to manageable pressure, then gradually increases stakes and consequences as your tolerance improves. This might start with presenting ideas to small groups and progress to speaking in front of large hostile audiences. It might begin with competitive games with friends and advance to high-stakes competitions with serious consequences. The critical element is maintaining high-quality performance throughout each pressure exposure. If you allow yourself to perform poorly under pressure, you're training your brain that pressure causes performance degradation. But if you consistently perform well despite pressure, you train your brain that pressure enhances rather than impairs your capabilities. I built my pressure tolerance through deliberate exposure. I started by sharing my writing with close friends, low stakes, but enough pressure to make me nervous. Then I posted publicly online. Then I submitted to publications that might reject me. Then I published work under my real name where criticism could affect my reputation. Each level of pressure felt uncomfortable, but by maintaining quality despite discomfort, I trained my brain that pressure situations are manageable. Now I can handle criticism, judgment, and high-stakes situations that would have paralyzed me years ago. Pressure reframing. Your body's physiological response to pressure and excitement are nearly identical. Increased heart rate, elevated adrenaline, heightened alertness. The difference isn't in what's happening in your body. It's in how your brain interprets these sensations. Most people interpret pressure sensations as signals of danger. I'm nervous. Something bad might happen. I should be afraid. Elite performers interpret identical sensations as signals of opportunity. I'm energized. Something important is happening. I'm ready. This reframing requires specific training to override your brain's automatic interpretation patterns. When you feel your heart racing before an important presentation, instead of thinking, I'm nervous, you consciously reframe, I'm energized for this opportunity. When you feel butterflies before a crucial conversation, instead of interpreting this as anxiety, you recognize it as excitement to demonstrate your capabilities. I practice this reframing constantly. Before any high-pressure situation, I notice my physiological state and deliberately reframe it. My body is preparing me for peak performance. This is exactly how I should feel. This simple mental shift completely changes my experience of pressure. What used to feel like debilitating anxiety now feels like rocket fuel. Task fixation. Under pressure. Normal focus techniques often fail under high pressure because stress hormones create mental noise that interferes with concentration. Elite pressure performance requires advanced focus techniques that remain stable even when your nervous system is highly activated. The technique is called task fixation, becoming completely absorbed in executing critical actions regardless of chaos or consequences. This prevents your brain from being overwhelmed by the magnitude of stakes and keeps your attention locked onto the specific actions that create successful outcomes. During pressure situations, you don't think about the consequences. You don't focus on what might go wrong. You don't consider the stakes. You fixate exclusively on the immediate task in front of you. When I'm in high-pressure situations, giving important presentations, having crucial conversations, making significant decisions, I practice extreme task fixation. I focus only on the next sentence I need to say, the next action I need to take, the next decision I need to make. The consequences don't exist. The stakes don't exist. Only the immediate task exists. This keeps me from being paralyzed by pressure and allows me to execute at my highest level. Confident uncertainty. One of the biggest pressure killers is analysis paralysis, becoming frozen by the fear of making wrong decisions. Elite pressure performance requires developing what researchers call confident uncertainty, the ability to make decisive choices even when you don't have complete confidence in the outcome. This prevents the paralysis that occurs when people wait for perfect information or complete certainty before taking action. You make the best decision possible with available information, then commit fully to executing it rather than second-guessing. I practice confident uncertainty in every significant decision. I gather information quickly, make the best choice I can with what I have, then execute with full commitment. No second-guessing, no endless deliberation. Decide and execute. This approach means I sometimes make wrong decisions, but I'd rather make 10 decisions with 8 being good than make 2 decisions that are perfect. Velocity beats perfection under pressure. Pressure isn't something to avoid, it's something to master, because the best opportunities in life come with the highest pressure, master pressure performance, and you'll thrive where others crumble. Chapter 10, Mental Resilience and the Persistence Protocol, Building Unbreakable Psychological Strength. Hello, my friend. Let me tell you something that might sting. Mental toughness isn't something you're born with. It's something you build deliberately through systematic training. Just like physical strength develops through progressive resistance, psychological resilience develops through progressively challenging your comfort zone and teaching your brain to function optimally under stress. Here's the paradox most people never understand. The more you avoid discomfort, the weaker your ability to handle it becomes. Your brain interprets avoidance as evidence that whatever you're avoiding is truly dangerous, which increases your anxiety and resistance the next time you encounter something challenging. But when you systematically expose yourself to manageable levels of discomfort and stress, you train your brain to respond with confidence instead of fear. This process, what researchers call stress inoculation, literally rewires your nervous system to remain calm and focused when facing difficult situations. Cold exposure as mental training. One of the most powerful methods for building stress tolerance quickly is deliberate cold exposure. I'm talking about cold showers, ice baths, or simply exposing yourself to uncomfortable temperatures. This trains your nervous system to remain calm when facing physical discomfort. The key to effective cold exposure is progressive adaptation. You start with temperatures and durations that create manageable discomfort, maybe 30 seconds of cool water, then gradually increase the challenge as your tolerance improves. The mental training happens when you consciously choose to stay calm and breathe deeply while experiencing the discomfort, teaching your brain to override its natural panic response. I started with 10-second bursts of cold water at the end of my warm shower. Absolutely brutal. My body screamed at me to stop. But I focused on my breathing, stayed calm, and pushed through. After 2 weeks, I increased to 30 seconds, then a minute. Now I take fully cold showers for 3 minutes and actually look forward to them, because my brain has learned that discomfort doesn't equal danger. The persistence protocol. True persistence isn't about grinding through suffering indefinitely. It's about strategic endurance combined with intelligent adaptation. Most people quit not because their goal becomes impossible, but because their current approach becomes unsustainable. The persistence protocol begins with outcome independence, detaching your emotional state from short-term results, while maintaining complete commitment to long-term success. When you're outcome independent, temporary failures don't discourage you, because you understand they're part of the process, not evidence that you should quit. My friend Diana built her business using this principle. She got rejected 127 times before landing her first client. Most people would have quit after rejection 20, but Diana was outcome independent. She measured success by whether she made her daily sales calls, not by whether people said yes. Each rejection became data that improved her pitch. Each no brought her closer to her first yes. Setback, reframing. Every setback contains valuable data about what doesn't work, bringing you closer to discovering what does work. When you view failures as research rather than rejection, they become fuel for persistence rather than reasons to quit. The key is developing an experimental mindset where every action is a test designed to gather information. This removes the emotional charge from failure because failed experiments aren't personal rejections. They're simply data points that guide your next iteration. Strategic patience. Meaningful results often require more time than initially expected. Strategic patience involves regularly assessing whether your current approach is making measurable progress, even if that progress is slower than hoped. Focus on leading indicators rather than lagging indicators. Leading indicators show you're moving in the right direction even before final results appear. These might include increased skills, expanded networks, improved systems, or growing knowledge that will eventually translate into observable success. Environmental persistent support creates systems and structures that make quitting harder than continuing. This might include public commitments that put your reputation on the line, financial investments that create cost to quitting, or social accountability systems that expect your continued effort. When stopping requires effort and explanation, while continuing requires only follow-through, your brain naturally chooses persistence even when motivation is low. Resilience and persistence aren't about being superhuman. They're about building systems that make giving up harder than pushing forward. Build these systems, and you become unstoppable. Chapter 11. The Complete Transformation. Becoming the person who does hard things. Listen closely, because this is where everything comes together. You've learned the neuroscience of resistance. You've discovered environmental engineering. You've mastered execution systems and focus protocols. You understand pressure performance and resilience training. But knowledge alone changes absolutely nothing. Information without implementation is just entertainment that makes you feel productive while keeping you exactly where you are. The difference between people who achieve extraordinary transformation and those who remain stuck despite knowing what to do comes down to one thing: the decision to commit completely to becoming a different person. This isn't about making small improvements to your existing personality or adding a few good habits to your current lifestyle. This is about fundamental transformation at the deepest levels of your identity, belief systems, and automatic behavioral patterns. The breaking point. Complete transformation begins with what I call the breaking point, where you definitively reject your old identity and all the limitations it imposed on your potential. This isn't gradual change. This is a conscious decision that your old self, with all its fears, excuses, and limitations, is no longer acceptable. This breaking point often comes from reaching absolute clarity about the cost of staying the same. When you truly understand what remaining unchanged will cost you in terms of missed opportunities, unreached potential, and eventual regret, the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of transformation. At that moment, change stops being something you're trying to do and becomes something you must do. Your old patterns become intolerable rather than comfortable. Your limitations become unacceptable rather than reasonable. Identity integration. The next stage involves consistently acting with your new identity, even when it feels unnatural. This is the hardest stage because you're operating against decades of conditioning. You must consistently choose actions that align with your new identity, rather than your old patterns. especially when you don't feel like it. Every time you act in accordance with your new identity, you strengthen the neural pathways that support it. Every time you revert to old patterns, you reinforce the programming you're trying to change. I call this behavioral integrity, where your actions match your intentions regardless of how you feel in the moment. You do what you said you would do when you said you would do it, whether you feel like it or not. Automatic excellence. Eventually, your new patterns become so deeply ingrained that they require no conscious effort. What once required enormous willpower now happens naturally because it's simply who you are. At this stage, doing hard things doesn't feel hard anymore because your identity as someone who embraces challenge has become completely integrated. Your brain no longer generates resistance to difficult tasks because it recognizes them as natural expressions of your personality. The final truth. Right now, as you finish this journey with me, you stand at a crossroads. You can close this experience and return to your old patterns, armed with new information but unchanged in your fundamental nature. Or you can make the decision that everything about how you've been operating is no longer acceptable. You can decide that the person who started reading this no longer exists. You can choose to become someone who forces their brain to do hard things, not because they have to, but because that's simply who they are. The techniques, strategies, and protocols you've learned will work, but only if you implement them with complete commitment. Only if you decide that transformation isn't something you're going to try, it's something you're going to do. The choice is yours. Your brain is ready to be reprogrammed, rewired, and transformed into your most powerful weapon. The question isn't whether you can change. The question is, will you? Everything you want exists on the other side of hard things. And now, you know exactly how to force your brain to go there. Now go build the life you deserve.